Welcome back to Driving and Dragons, folks. I'm Daniel, and I have no strong feelings one way or the other. So join me in sitting on the fence as we finally return to my deep dive breakdown of the 9 alignment system that was forged in the fires of AD&D and how it is properly implemented. You can find the rest of the playlist there in the top corner of the screen and in the description. There you will find videos on the philosophy of alignment, the mechanical aspects of alignment, the definitions of the 4 axes of the alignment system, and then breakdowns of what it means to be each of the 9 alignments as a player or as a GM running an NPC. This video covers the 8th of the individual alignments, neutral. Before we get into what it means to be neutral, please take a moment to like the video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment to add to the conversation, and if you would like to support all the projects this channel is involved in, my Patreon, channel memberships, and all the various super thanks and super stickers are greatly appreciated. So now, let's get gray and talk about neutrality. I've mentioned before, both when discussing neutrality overall and when talking about the lawful neutral alignment, that as a whole, the neutral alignments are the most difficult to play well and maintain. And this is for numerous reasons, not the least of which is that all the morally neutral alignments are functionally 3 different philosophies that each could react in radically different ways to the same situation. You don't have this with good and evil alignments. The altruism of good and the blatant self-interest of evil alignments generally lead to a pretty obvious answer to most questions. With neutrality, you have the philosophical, the apathetic, and the unprincipled. And while the latter 2 often align, that isn't always the case. Ironically, moral neutrality is the default for most individuals in the world, but neutral characters in books, movies, TV shows, and stories only succeed as supporting or auxiliary characters and never really as primary protagonists or antagonists. Likewise, the situations characters in a TTRPG face typically force the players to take a stance, thus guiding them towards one side or the other of the moral compass. When I present this, the natural inclination is to try and solve it mathematically. What's so hard? Just be evil half the time and good the other half. In fact, that even sounds on the surface like the very definition of the balance-focused philosophical neutrality. But of course, it's not that simple. Let's start with the easiest to understand, but arguably the hardest to play, the morally apathetic. This neutral character is what most people in the world actually are. They do not actually have moral convictions, but either through societal pressure, social conditioning, or just simple natural empathy, they're not going to cross the boundary into evil. I'm selfish and I'm looking out for number 1, but I'm not going to harm others if I can help it, and I'm typically going to look for the win-win situation, if for no other reason than I might feel better about it. In the case of the true neutral alignment, I'm going to support the societal structures and pay lip service to the traditions and rules because it protects my situation and, frankly, is simply easier. But I'm certainly not above ignoring the traditions that I find inconvenient or breaking the rules when the risk-reward equation is heavily weighted in my favor. So why is this hard to play well? How can it be that what is essentially the unconcerned, uncaring, typical person difficult to play? Because we don't tell stories about typical and normal. And this is not a narrative play exclusive matter either. Even in the most hands-off, sandbox, emergent exploration adventure style of play, the game is still about making a story. And the only difference is the degree to which the GM influences that story. And we don't tell stories about typical, average, normal situations because they're boring. Your character came to the keep on the Borderlands to open a pie stand? Cool, that character runs a pie stand. Roll up another one because no one is excited to sit down for 6 hours on a Saturday night listening to you say, those are $5.99 and the big ones are $9.99. Thank you, come again. The situations that make the story interesting occur when the character is put in a situation where hard decisions with real consequences are required. In those situations, the neutral character is pulled inexorably in the direction of one of the other members of the party. Even if they are all neutral, they will inevitably find themselves behaving more in line with one morality or the other. Eventually, you act yourself into a new way of thinking and find yourself making the good or evil decision, even when the opposite is more in line with the morally apathetic or unprincipled view. The unprincipled differs only in that it is more about actively seeking the easy answers or the path of least resistance, and it has all the same issues of the apathetic view, save that it tends to fall into evil in almost all cases when put into the test, as in a TTRPG adventure. So what about the philosophically neutral? Surely the neutral character who is dedicated to the idea of balance between good and evil is easier to play. I mean, maybe, but I hate to tell you that this character becomes practically and functionally identical to a good or evil character depending on the tone of the campaign. If anything, the only real difference surfaces in how they react to side quests or hooks for things that are not really part of the main plot. Because your first instinct is the dead wrong way to play it. That instinct is to, quote-unquote, just make evil and good decisions in equal measure. That is not being philosophically neutral. To be philosophically neutral is, much like alignment itself, about the big picture and not the day-to-day minutia. The classic nature-dedicated, all-life-is-balanced druid is adventuring to counteract what is seen as an imbalance in the world, or the region, or the direction of society, or whatever, so on and so forth. This is extremely difficult to balance, pun intended, with the nature of a TTRPG campaign. Essentially, you have a character who is always fighting for the losing side, trying to turn back the tide towards the middle. In a classic heroic fantasy D&D game, that makes them functionally a good character fighting the encroaching darkness. That is, until the darkness is being pushed back by the light, and suddenly the party druid is sabotaging your missions because balance is shifting from evil to good. A great literary example of this flavor of moral neutrality comes from the Draenei saga of David Gemmell. While they are lawful neutral, not true neutral, the Temple of the 30 is a clear example. They spend their lives in seclusion, meditating on the source of the universe, and they train themselves to go out and fight the ultimate losing battle. And you would be tempted to call them good because in the books they are always joining the side of our heroes fighting a losing battle, but their philosophy says nothing about the virtue, vice, goals, or desires of the side they fight for, only that they fight for the side that is fighting the losing battle. In legend, the Abbot of Swords says it pretty plainly. I'm paraphrasing a bit here, but he says, whether we go or we don't go, the fortress will fall, either in this battle or one in the future. The sun rises on the time of the nadir, even as it sets on the time of the Draenei. They are fighting against the pendulum swinging. In the same series, from the same religion, we actually do find a true neutral group, the Seers. They take no sides in anything. They simply tell their visions of the future to any who ask. They take a form of philosophical neutrality that really doesn't work for a player character. They refuse to take any action or influence anything. So at the end of the day, we come to find that true neutral often finds itself in conflict with the party-based story-building nature of RPGs. There are certainly ways to play it, and play it well, especially if the entire party agrees to be philosophically neutral. But more often than not, the neutral character ends up becoming one of two things: disruptive or bland, and I'm not sure which of those is worse at the end of the day. I will tell you something that I know for a fact is worse. Characters of the alignment that we will cover next and last, chaotic neutral. Of all the alignments, the one I only want my most trusted players to run is chaotic neutral. And you'll find out why next time. So thanks for coming out, folks. See you next time.